asked no one because no one ever asks any questions of me. But we're going to pretend that someone has asked. So if there's not going to be any prosecution, why are you so interested in the remains? Who cares about a bunch of bones? What's the point if no one's going to go to prison for all of this? And there are so many reasons. In part because I was brought into this in what I think is the greatest spiritual setup of the modern era. And I have endured more in the past 8 years than anyone else can possibly fathom. And I'm determined to get something out of it. Even if that something is pulling bones from the ground and taking them home. Even if it is merely stirring the shit pot to see what rises to the top. However, there's a lot more to it than my ego's desire for action. So just north of the Ute Mountain Ute Res on BLM land, there's a shallowish grave of an 11-year-old girl alongside her 6-year-old brother. They were murdered in front of their mother, as I've been told it, because she offended some rule of whatever Sinaloan crime game that's happening on that res. So some whoever of that whatever decided that this woman would be best punished by watching her children murdered before she was murdered. And I was introduced to these youngsters who I call Marcos and Christina, though admittedly that may not be their given names. That's just what I call them. I met them in the height of COVID in a way that no one beyond the other person involved and a select few of those of the medicine way will ever believe. I'm not even going to get into that there. But there are tribal folks who knew that one day there were 2 children and the next day those 2 children were not. There are people who know that they're in the sand and where in the sand they are and who put them there. Near a mountain that's more revered by the living people than those children or their mother were. And no one has said a word. No one has said a word because it's not safe to say something after you see something. It's not safe to say something when you know something. But on Christmas Eve of 2020, I sat on my couch with the spirit of that 6-year-old little boy tucked in my lap because he knew it was Christmas. He knew it was Christmas and he wanted to go home. He didn't want a person. He didn't want me. But the ground that he called home. The ground that knew his name. And apparently since I was the only one that acknowledged both his presence and his absence. In a pinch, I would do to soothe a broken heart. And the ground he's still in knew and knows that she is not home for him or his sister. And I sat and I sobbed and I rocked, holding this invisible density on my lap, saying over and over again, I love you, I love you, I love you, I'm so sorry, I love you, I love you. And that's only one story of hundreds. Years before the ground and I were in this current type of conversation. Back in 2019, I had a list of 85 coordinates where individual and mass graves are across the continental US and southern Canada. And each of these graves are related to the fuckery. By now, I'm guessing we're at 200 or more. And it all began to unfold back in 2017 when the wind and the sand and the mountains and ancestors, particularly one Ed City Chislily, guided me and 3 other people because although it really feels like it, this has never been just an Ingrid thing. He guided us straight to an unmarked graveyard off of Old Well Road on Gila River, where 20 to 30 bodies have not been laid to rest, but in the sand, at the orders of a woman who I call the Lady in Red. She's the one that bridges the gap between the Sinaloa cartel and Indian country in this Mexican Tucson, Phoenix metro area pipeline of crime. Back in 2018, when I presented what I knew and how I knew it to a tribal lieutenant, his response had nothing to do with disbelief, because that's the most dangerous place on the res. What the fuck are you doing there? What he said in response to that part, though, was, we'll just never get a warrant. And my unspoken response to him across the table from me was an eyebrow. And I said in my head, you fucking pussy. But in the moment, A, I knew it was true. And B, it's not the issue at hand. Not what we're talking about in the moment. But these days, I know where the bones are buried in the sand and in the forest and in piles, burn piles, and in barrels. Because the ground knows when things aren't where they belong. Like, we have these human ideas about invasive weeds, which aren't really outside of our imaginations, but the ground knows the foreign, and she knows how to return things. And here's where I'll come back to, either in a few minutes or another video, to talk more about the historical trauma in part 1 related to forced displacement, or the forced removal of people to accommodate greed and race, and more. I'll get back to that eventually, but first, though, I want to talk about the bones themselves. We have this misplaced idea of body and soul, body versus soul, body, soul, plus oversouls and lost souls, and ad nauseum. There's so many layers added by folks who want to show their expertise in the ways of spirit. And those ideas are about as old as the hills, and they're wrong. That's an incredibly limited perspective that's not been argued or discussed since, like, a bunch of white dudes decided that Aristotle was right. The real deal, though, even though it's limited, is this: that the bones within each of us are not mere husks that hold muscles in place and create marrow to move life. All things within the body are in relation with all things outside the body all of the time. All things within the body are in relationships with all things outside the body. Bones, dried and buried as they may be, are still alive. They are still part of the life force. They emit, they exude, they hum, sometimes holler prayers. They have, for instance, souls of their own, if you will. It's not as if we die and there's a single soul that takes a hike on this universal highway and is like, see ya! That's not how this works. And that's not to say that might not happen for a very few beings that transition outside of a body, but that is not a cookie cutter experience. That does not happen for all things, especially for those bones that have not been interred in the way that makes sense to them. And here I need to insert the reminder that it doesn't have to make sense to you. You're not them. If common sense isn't common, then uncommon sense is a whole other thing. It doesn't have to make sense to you. It's just real. But these relationships require nurturing, and are nurturing. They're beyond our ideas of spiritual rules of the game. These are relationships that are particular and they are eons old. The energy held within these bones includes memory of place, memory of time, memory of spatial awareness. Like, it's fucking geolocation before that became associated with technology. Like, we humans have held ourselves apart from those things that follow their own intuitive or time-worn avenues through the clouds and the sky, like those paths of migration that we take for granted, but unlike us, not our flight path, except it is us, all of us. Like, how many of you have traveled to a place and known that you've been there before, even though you've never been there? That right there, that's memory. It's not just a mind thing. It's memory. It doesn't matter what kind of language is used to explain it or to discredit it. That's memory of place that is carried through body. It's memory of language. It's memory of relationship. It's memory that is born of blood and bone across time and continents. So these bones that are brought to me, they know they're in the wrong place. These bones that are brought to me know love and lost beyond the lived experience we associate with being a dead human. These bones have soul. These bones are alive. These bones hold song and memory and play, and they hold the weight of those that came before them and those that are yet to be born. These bones are also the medicine for families that wait in limbo, helpless, hopeless, longing for some kind of reunion. Like headlines from around the globe drive home the point, what it's like to bring the dead home. From Syria, Armenia, Germany, Mexico, Afghanistan, Iraq, Britain, Bangladesh, Burma. Our KIA soldiers here in the U.S. that are still in Vietnam, like the Roman and other empires across Africa and the Americas have held sacred rites and burial spaces that we marvel at, yet can't connect to this modern world. These modern world episodes, beyond our reverence for the objectification of those things. I want to bring these bones home because the hypocrisies of communal mourning of unmarked graves at places like Kamloops and Carlisle that fueled my outreach to tribal leadership in 2021 are still relevant today. Like back then, there was the woe is the child taken, right? Bring them home was repeated across ceremony and legislature and in the streets, and these past atrocities were paraded across the public sphere. And it was real. It's real pain, real loss, real calls for home. Yet here in the modern era, MMIW is like beyond this, the call for more awareness. There's silence. There's so much fucking awareness. It's across movies. It's in novels. It's in other fictions that dance around the reality of real pain, real loss, and real calls to home. Like there's a refrain from stories about the desaparecidos in Argentina and Chile that says essentially that if these people, man or woman, are disappeared, there must be a reason for it. They must have done something to deserve being taken. There is not a girl or a woman that deserves to be taken from home and murdered or taken to be used by as many penises as possible before she's murdered and dumped in the desert or the ground or under or in a burn pile or a barrel. There's not a single bone from a girl or a woman who's been dumped in the place that's not home that doesn't deserve to be taken home, to be taken back to the hearth of the heart that echoes her prayer through my body and mind. Help me bring them home. Let the rest take care of itself. Help me bring them home.